It's the January 2023 show with Lil from CMHA. Great to see you. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and a good New Year. It's time to get back at it.
You got it. New year.
And I wanted to start this new year. One of our raiders in the hub had an interesting scenario about a month ago where she ran into a homeless person was coming down her lane, and she saw this and she wanted to help. So she went into her house and got a can of tuna, a can of beans, and just wanted to share with this person to help them along. Very nice thing to do. But as the person got closer with their cart, they kind of scoured from her. They were afraid to go near her. And there was that perception on both sides. The person that raised for us said, when you grow up, you're kind of afraid of people. We've got to get over that stigma. And the person that was struggling was afraid that maybe they were going to throw the cans at them. It all worked out in the end. Our raider was able to give the cans to the person, share the food with them, and also shared a blanket to help them along. But let's talk about misconception. I mean, there's one of the big stigmas, I think, is that a person struggling with any kind of mental illness is probably violent. Let's nail that right down now. Talk, Lil. Let's figure this out.
Sure. First of all, thank goodness for people like your writer there. I think there should be more people like that in the world. So duly noted there. Unfortunately, there is a lot of misconceptions about mental health problems, mental illness, and we are, this is a media show, and I certainly don't want to come down on media, but unfortunately, some miscommunication on the TV shows that we watch, misrepresentation is pretty bad for perpetuating that myth, right? And our newspapers are getting so much better in reporting things going on in our world with mental illness and things like that. But, there's still a lot of work to be done. But, you can't blame people if you don't work in the field or you don't know anyone who's living with mental illness and know that they're wonderful people and can be very functional with the right medication and treatment in some cases. You really don't understand what mental illness is all about. But if you don't know, when you watch TV and you see, violent, schizophrenic, kills this and kills that. And, this is the images and the perception that the average person is faced with. This is what they believe. So we really have to look at how people with mental illness are portrayed throughout all aspects of society. People fear them if they don't understand what's going on with them. And stats show that people living with mental illness, and especially people living on the streets who are living with mental illness, are more the victims of crime and violence than the perpetrators. So that's a fact.
Yeah, and it's almost generational, right?
Yep.
Because we've gone through this long stretch where our misconceptions were just that.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100%. You don't know what happened in that person's life.
No, you don't.
So we're judging on an outward appearance again, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're making all that. Our raider did a fantastic job sort of nurturing the situation along so that she could help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something we all need to understand better, isn't it? The nurturing of that process.
Yes.
That people are going through.
Absolutely. I mean, nobody really knows what's going on with that person. And sometimes people walk by and they're just kind of disgusted by this homeless person, or maybe this person that's downtown that's just talking to themselves or dancing in the street. And we see it all. We're located downtown, but they don't understand what's going on with this person and what has happened in this person's life. And the person may be symptomatic, but it is human nature to reject what we don't understand. But I think that we need to look at changing that part of human nature. I'm a person, and so are you, that likes to understand what's going on, likes to know the reasoning for what is happening, what I'm seeing. And I think if more people kind of took that open-minded, nurturing approach, people with mental illness would be a lot better off and better understood, and not be so hesitant to go for treatment. The stats show that 25% of individuals living with mental illness are reluctant to go for treatment because of the stigma. And that's terrible. That's 25% of people that could be getting the help and to manage their symptoms. Yeah.
Folks that are living on the street, not necessarily all the time, may have mental illnesses, but that might be their choice.
Yes.
And this is another area. How do we properly support as an individual that's just out there? How do I properly support, or how do I make that impact? Do I volunteer with CMHA? Do I, what little things can we do to help them?
Sure. You could volunteer with CMHA. That's wonderful. But also when you see an individual on the street downtown, just say good morning. Sometimes when I'm downtown very early, like around 8:30, getting my coffee before work, a lot of homeless people are out because, the places aren't open yet where they can go for a bit. And I say good morning. And they say good morning, good morning. And lovely people, just thrilled that somebody has acknowledged them and said good morning. And remember, they're people too. They are people too. I go by the Salvation Army, and usually people are waiting out there to get in. And I always say good morning, nice day today. Oh, lovely, I think we have to stop rejecting what we don't understand, and in turn try to understand more. And that really helps with that stigma that's still out there.
Another question I have is, and you mentioned this earlier, is it seems like there's a lot more youth living on the street. Is it just me?
No,
or are you seeing that too?
And that's so sad. I mean, it's sad to see anybody on the street, but sometimes you have to remember that's their choice. But with young people, perhaps the situation that they're leaving is worse than, the freedom that they're having on the street away from the situation that they came from. I think that if our youth could stay at home or could find a place to stay, they certainly would. I don't think it's always their choice to be on the streets. So, you have to really understand where they're coming from. Maybe they were coming out of a home that was broken, violent. You really don't know. Abuse, lots of things. So a lot of people say, oh, look at these young people on the street. Wow, they're young. They can find work. What are they doing on the street? I think that's probably their goal. I remember most recently there was a very young person that was asking for money. And, I like to give food instead. I do. I think it's a better thing to do, to give food. So he said, thank you, but I'm saving for a car, right? So that I can stay in my car rather than on the streets. And it seemed genuine. It really did. It seemed genuine. So this time I did give a little bit of money. But I think the best thing you could do is offer to give some food. They may not want it, because chances are they're not eating well. Or haven't eaten for a few days. And I've heard that before. Sometimes I've heard, I haven't eaten for 3 days. Can you help me out with some food? Yeah. So we don't know. We don't know this person's situation, no matter how young or old they are living on the streets.
And, in Brant, Haldeman, Norfolk, there's Salvation Armies. There's places where folks can get a meal, or can they go and stay a night? Is there opportunities like that still?
Yes, sure. I mean, the Salvation Army has accommodations for sure. Some people do not want to stay in shelters it could be a little bit of a dangerous place in some situations. Also, there's rules, and living on the street is that freedom that they have. So some people don't want to go to the shelters, but it's always an option.
Boy, and there's so many myths. Like I've got a list in front of me. We could just start, and we could be here all day, I think, doing them. But, there's the stigmas. One of the other ones that really bothers me is that people that have a mental illness are weak. Yeah. I don't know why they can't handle stress. And I think that's kind of, in this day and age, like that's so old school thinking. That's ridiculous.
It sure is. It's got nothing to do with weakness. If people could snap out of it or get over it, I'm sure they surely would, right? Yeah. So it's got nothing to do with weakness. Mental illness is a chemical imbalance in the brain. It can be triggered by trauma or stress or anything like that. It's got nothing to do with weakness or your ability to deal with the stressors of life. It's the chemical imbalance in the brain.
Which leads to the next one, the myth that you can never recover. Well,
That's
obviously you can. I mean, yeah. Though there's so many other ones too. Like I do think when we talk about this, we need to educate people enough to understand that, yes, you can have a positive impact. You can volunteer. You can help out. Again, with our writer, she ended up giving a blanket. Something else very important. I mean, the bottom line is survival for these folks, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about survival. And I know in downtown, where I live, people are putting up scarves and mittens. They're tying them to telephone poles or any place public. And it just says, take me. And, I think that, there's a movement in my city anyway. And I've seen it in other places where just homeless people, please take socks, please take mittens, please take scarves. People are knitting them and just giving them away for free. So there you go. It
kind of makes you believe that humanity hopefully is back on somewhat of a right track, right? That we all got to pull along and help each other. Yes. I think that's the difference. And the other, I guess the last thing is you never know when it's going to affect you, each individual. Right, exactly. So you could be in that boat in 2 or 3 years. So why not help out now? Pay it forward. Exactly.
I mean, you don't know the situation. You don't know where they've come from, what's happened to them. But people are very quick to judge, right? And I love your closing remark there, Dave. It can happen to anyone. You never know. So...
Well, let's hope 2023 is a better year mental health wise for everyone, and keep up the good vibes. And I'll see you next month. Okay.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.